5:30 this evening. I have all the information. I was able to print the material and I have everything with me, and I also do have our agenda for today in print as well.
Good evening, everyone.
Good evening.
Good evening.
What?
There we go.
All right. Okay, I see we have Jeremy with us this evening, again. Yeah. Actually, that was a nice article.
Very. I thought it was very good.
Yeah. Okay, I know we're here. Forms here. That's coming out of your bag.
Oh my God, my husband put his phone in my purse. I mean, in my bag. What do you want?
He wants his phone back.
Your phone, it's ringing and I'm saying, that's Lee's phone. Okay. I didn't steal anything. You put it in my bag.
Just remember, we're being broadcast and recorded.
You know,
For quality assurance purposes.
we are on TV with this. And you have my wallet. Okay, all right. Yeah. All right.
Is anybody looking for a copy of our agenda for the evening?
Yes.
There you go. Anybody else? We're all good? Okay. It's 6:31. I'll be cognizant of everybody's time. Let's get rolling. Good evening, everyone. Thank you for coming. I do appreciate it. Let me just do a quick roll. Since Linda's taking minutes for us, so we can confirm who's here. Lori Bellman here. Hector Ruiz is not. Norma Castro is joining us online.
Here.
Thomas Shea is here. Brian Kell.
Here.
Oh. Yeah, yes, that's here. Redera is online with us this evening.
Yes, here. Thank you.
Wayne Beeler. Don't see Wayne. Okay, Linda is here and I am here. One thing I did not do, and I will apologize up front. Linda did post minutes for us from the last meeting. I did not send that link around to anybody. Has anybody had a chance to review those minutes?
I think I did send them.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay, all right. Did anybody have any questions or comments about those minutes? Linda, Robert's rules, do we need to have a formal vote to accept those minutes?
Yeah, that would be good.
Okay.
Second.
Okay, we have a motion and a second. Any question? All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Wonderful. One other thing that we did not do at our first meeting, and I don't know if we should have or not. We will appoint a chairman of this commission just as someone to speak formally. I guess most so when we present the council, it would be that chairman presenting the council.
Yeah, you can certainly do that.
Okay,
It's not required, but you can do that.
all right.
I think it makes sense in my opinion. That probably should be someone who is representing a specific district, so they are a city, citizen living in a city and is, from one of the districts that's being, looked at. I don't know that either Wayne or I representing the planning commission should be in that position. Just my opinion.
Okay. All right. Would anybody like to nominate anybody or nominate themselves?
May I also maybe suggest that
person that will be that person. I don't know. I would rather put that off until we get to know each other a little better to find out who represents this commission.
That's fine. I
better.
support that. Okay. That's wonderful. I'm good with that. And everybody seems to be in agreement, so we can table that. So I would guess our last meeting, we will make a final presentation to council. Moving on then with our agenda. Linda, number one, thank you for putting those minutes together last month and for getting the agenda ready for us for this evening. When Linda sent the agenda out for this evening, she did copy various administrative codes and things that we need to look at. We were discussing this before we got started this evening. There was some concern that came up about the charter tells us that we need to keep neighborhoods in mind as we go through our process. We want to try and not split neighborhoods if we don't have to. One of the other things, and there's some of the data that I sent out included data on race and national origin. The long and short is when you look at federal law, state law, and actually federal case law, at the end of the day, this still has to be a numbers-driven process. We can consider neighborhoods as we're drawing our final boundaries. But at the end, we still have to make our districts as equal in population as possible. So we can take those various things into account, but at the end of the day, it still is purely a numbers game. And I just want to put that out there so we're sure what we should be striving for. And as we speak, please throw questions out if you have it. I don't want to take these meetings and run with them. This is your meeting. After last month's meeting, there were some requests for additional data, which I did send out. I tried to separate it, well, I didn't try. I did separate it out by district and then ward and precinct. We sent out the total population information along with race and Hispanic origin for the totals and also for the over 18 population. Anyway, also included, and I found this interesting because we never got this before, group quarters population. Those who are in, for example, skilled nursing facilities, which we do have here in the city. I don't know that we have any correctional facilities. There's one being listed with 58 people. I'm still trying to figure out where that is.
What is it? What kind of site?
Correctional facility for adults,
Might be City Hall.
Reading Ward 7.
Ward 7.
Reading Ward 7, yes. So I haven't looked at them out. I gotta see where that is.
It probably is.
58 people? You're in jail. Or are they talking about employees?
Yeah, I had the question too about college. When they talk about college students, how accurate is that to be in our consideration? College students, I guess, were included in the census where they were at that particular time.
Well, this is one of the interesting ones, and we're having this discussion about Kutztown University. When these data came out for Kutztown Borough and Maxwell Township, there were losses of like 800 and 600 people respectively in the township and the borough. And we're theorizing, because I haven't looked at them for the county yet, that it's the students that were at home. The Census Bureau was telling people You report where you live a majority of the time, which meant college students should have been reported at college, whether they were there or not. State College Borough is one of many who are actually now suing the federal government over these numbers. If you look at these under, for example, District 4 is showing 961 in college housing, which would make sense. That would be Albright. District 1 is showing 945, which would make sense. That's Alvernia. The other 4 districts are showing zeros, so that makes sense. In 2000, remember, College Town was not yet populated with students. So those are the only 2 districts in the city that have student population. Military quarters, obviously, we have none. Nursing homes, there is actually only 1 formal nursing home in the city. And it's showing in District 1. I'm trying to think.
There's that one on Hawk Street.
Well, that is actually considered a personal care home. Those people are not considered institutionalized. It's a legal definition.
What about Market Square?
They are considered, they're here under the non-institutionalized, other non-institutional facilities. You see, we've got 515 people spread all throughout the state. That's what those folks are.
What precinct is
that? It would be Ward 18. Actually, yeah, it's 18th Ward, Precinct 3.
Is that Kenhurst?
No, I'm sorry. School nursing facility. 18th Ward, Precinct 4.
Where's that? Give me some crossroads.
I got it up here. No.
That's
18.
Oh, I know where, off Museum Road.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, St. Elizabeth's or, yes.
But is that a skilled nursing facility?
Yes, it is.
Okay.
This is like a trivia game.
All right.
Is that, the health direction? 58.
That's District 5.
Yeah, that would probably be the Hope Rescue Mission.
I'm sorry, which one are you asking about? Yeah, correct, District 6.
And we were asking what 58.
A correctional facility for adults.
Well, sometimes. Me too, there's a program at the Y like that. Yeah, yeah.
Yeah, that would be
The
7.
halfway house.
I'm not sure, I'd have to look at the definitions to see where they put halfway house, that may be it. That may be part of it.
Are there still a bunch up on Walnut Street where they're at? Halfway
I'm
house?
sorry?
Are there still a bunch up on Walnut Street?
Yes.
Yeah, but that would be in Walnut. Yeah, it's bingo. Bingo. Yeah, well, that's 7-1
Yeah.
because they're between 6th and 7th. Okay.
I guess I'm still confused. It sounds like college students declared they were at school and did the census after school, and some did it at home.
What the Census Bureau did was they worked with colleges and universities nationwide. For those that live on campus, the colleges and universities, for the most part, gave the Bureau that information. Basically, age, gender, race, whatever they had on their files, they worked with the Bureau to get them that information. Those who live off campus, which is where the Kutztown and the Max Point Township issue comes into play, most of them said they were at home. But for example, here, Albright and Albernia, the Bureau probably got the information directly from the colleges, not from the students. They learned that lesson back in, I want to say 1990 already. It's better to just work with the colleges and get it directly from them. And most of them did it. There was no problem. And then the last piece of data that I sent out was the number of housing units. Just total numbers occupied versus vacant. And if you look at, we were talking earlier, there are probably two specific wards or precincts rather, where there are a large number of people. If you look at those, it's probably going to be the same with the number of housing units. And those are probably the areas where, you know, we'd have to do some looking back at 2010 numbers. We've probably seen a lot of conversions in the last 10 years. Because if you look at from single family to multifamily. Because if you look at the housing unit counts from 2010 to 2020, the city gained over 1,400 housing units.
But that's, I would suspect that that's mostly from units being repaired.
Okay.
From units, not from units being divided.
Okay.
There's a moratorium in the city on there's a moratorium in the city on producing the market.
There is, but the zoning board does consider variances.
But I can't imagine
Over
10 years.
And how many illegal conversions do we think have happened?
that number is getting less.
Okay.
I think it would have to do with what I'm seeing in the city with how many structures have been repaired over the past 10 years with help of the Black Cross and the Q4 and other things.
Okay.
I think these are abandoned houses that have now come back on.
All right. Well, that would be great if that's the case. That would be great.
Because, yeah, we do have, where the zoning hearing board does allow for some apartments.
Right.
Where do they get that number
It's
from?
not really an overwhelming.
Okay.
Where do they get that number from, the units?
The number of units you reported, it was actually question number 9, I think, on your census form.
Okay.
You know, do you live in, what kind of a house do you live in? I don't even think they asked if you owned it outright or rented or what, but it was basically, you know, do you live in a house? Do you own a rent? And if a form was sent and it didn't come back, the actual enumerators went out to that address. If they got an answer, great. If they didn't get an answer, they'd look around and make an assumption that based on what it looks like, it may be vacant or, you know, vacant for sale. But overall, the city, according to the Bureau, gained over 1,400 units between 2010 and 2020. Total units, yes. Yeah. And I actually looked that number up after you had made a comment during your presentation this afternoon about the number of housing units in the city and how it's changed. And I went into my presentation last month just to confirm that number. And you know, let's pay attention.
Mhm.
We presented at the Berks County Planning Commission meeting this afternoon. Okay, any questions about the data? You know, this may or may not scare us. Realistically, the only column that we're gonna work with is on the first sheet, that total population. Because ultimately, that's what we're looking at by district. All right. And I'm not ignoring you folks joining us virtually. If you have any questions, please shout out.
Okay.
Okay, no
Okay,
problem.
here's where the meeting could end in 5 minutes, or we could go for another hour. Has anybody taken a stab at this yet?
I've scratched a little bit.
Okay.
Like I said, I tried, I plugged the numbers in based on the makeup of the districts prior to this, prior to 2012. And when you do that, it doesn't get any better. It actually gets worse.
Okay,
And like I said, just to see if by some chance there's a way to get the numbers close and just totally disregard getting everything to be in a little box. It's almost impossible to come up with 6 groupings of approximately the same number. So we're going to be off by quite a bit. And the conclusion I sort of came to was, what it is right now isn't all that bad when you look at other options.
okay. Well, that is certainly an option that this commission can decide to put forth in front of council. I mean, we do our due diligence, we try to make it work out, and if we don't feel comfortable with how things are working out, we can put that forth to council and they can accept it. That is certainly an option. You deal with that when that time comes, to be honest with you.
But I said it out. 10 years ago, there was no question. I think, you know, they just said, oh, this is the recommendation, this is what we're gonna do. I think the whole thing is fine.
Well, 10 years ago, we did make them a little better. We did even them out a little more. So we did make improvements. If we don't feel that that would work this time around, like I said, this group can recommend that we don't do anything, and that's spelled out in the charter language.
Well, as you saw on the sheet that I sent out, we're talking less than a plus or minus 1% change in each district.
Correct.
And the funny thing is that 2 districts that you probably don't want to fool with, which are 3 and 5. 5, you just don't want to touch. I mean,
Which ironically is the exact same thing that happened 10 years ago.
right.
We didn't touch 5.
I mean, you know, there's only you're only 49 people over 1/6 of the population. And District 5 is, and it's actually, you actually have 51 less than the median population.
Right.
And in District 3, which is the other one you probably don't want to touch, because that's only 51 over the median population. And the funny thing is that if you want to get the other districts, to work, you're going to have to pool with District 3.
Almost impossible.
But it's almost
Yeah.
impossible.
The size of the precincts on the borders.
Yeah.
The difference between the largest population of the district, which is 6, and the smallest, which is 1, 523 people. Where are you going to find?
I think it's more than that.
500.
I think it's 1,523.
Yes, you are correct. 1,523. But even so, there are a very small number of precincts with that smaller population. We be dealing with, 2,000, 3,000 people in a precinct. That number's hard to move around.
May I- may
I-
I-
Go ahead.
No, I'm over here.
No.
May I pose a question? I'm here as a representative at large. So even though I live in District 6, the rest of you have been, have been chosen by a council person to represent your district. Instead of posing the question of how do you change, it is what we have, that's the only way the numbers are going to be the same. May I ask each representative if they could change something to represent their own individual district better, what would it be?
Hmm.
So I mean, if that's an odd question, I can skip it, but, I would kind of like to know if we go beyond the numbers, what would make your council person a better representative if you could disregard it? And I would start, District 1 is, do we have a representative from District 1?
Hector's not present.
Okay. District 2, that's Norma. Okay.
I'm here.
Norma, did you hear my question?
On how we think we can make our district better?
What, if you could, and this is a hypothetical only.
Mhm.
What about your district lines in District 2 do you not like, or what would you do to make it better? How does your district represent your neighborhood cohesively? And is there something in there that doesn't make any sense to you?
Not really, honestly. I'm looking at it right now at the map. I mean, we're right on the edge of Mount Penn in District 2 and over Cumru. I mean, we do have a lot of open space here in District 2 as well. I mean,
Right, the one that's down by the railroad tracks, that's kind of annexed over to District 1, do you feel that that area is cohesive with your district? Or do you think that it's fine that it's not there?
I mean, I feel on the spot right now. I have to think about it a little more.
Yeah, I think it's a really good question.
It is a really good one, yeah.
I think we would need some time to answer it.
Okay, good, because Redistricting, I was really interested to know what you thought, because you and I come from the same district.
Right,
And I know what my feelings are, but you live in a very different neighborhood than I do. So
right.
I'm particularly interested in what you have to say about that. And it was really, I don't even know if we have a choice on that, but I know that I personally know that there's something I'd like to change in District 6, but I don't think I can because of the numbers. But I guess not knowing the other districts that well, that's why I was looking for things that represent. Anybody else?
Let me throw this one at you, just to continue this discussion. That one precinct between the district line, between 1 and 2, and the railroad tracks. That's Ward 3, that's 3-1. That's almost 2,900 people in there. Shifting that one would throw things way out of kilter. Back in 2010, the district line was following the railroad tracks. And I really hated to move that line, but that made it work perfect for us.
And I understand that, but from where I'm at, that doesn't, I don't object to that as much as I do south of Penn. To me, south of Penn should all be south of Penn. And I don't, the two districts that are included south of Penn in District 6, even though you changed it all around to make the numbers work really well last time, I'm not sure if that made it a very representative district.
Okay.
Especially,
That's a valid argument.
especially Redistricting, especially with what, you are kind of in the middle between the two districts, but especially with what's going on with south of Penn as a neighborhood. And it's a very active neighborhood. It's a very up and coming cohesive neighborhood that has nothing in common with Center Park. And it's, if there's a way we can get it all south of Penn in one district, of course, I've been trying to do that for the last 3 or 4 hours. I haven't been able to, but to me, that's an issue. And and if I'm the only one that thinks it's an issue, then I will stop right there and not go any further. So that's really, and that's just what I'm familiar with. I'm interested to know what
You just,
District 3, yeah, it doesn't work that well. When you start, believe me, it gets really.
well, interesting. It's interesting though that you bring that up. If I add 4-1 and 5-1, it's 2,906 people. District 3-1,
That's where I started. And then it all fell apart after
is
that.
2,800, is 2,869. So in the end, you can redraw those lines to make the district more representative
Right. The problem
without actually changing the population numbers of the
The
district.
problem is what it takes away from District 6, to even it out, is what happens. And like I said, that was the premise I started with. I
Yeah.
tried to do that and then work my way out.
Yeah.
And it really falls apart.
It makes District 1 work out well,
Yes,
but then by removing that from 2 and 6,
it was like a
yeah,
crazy domino effect.
Yep.
And I'm sure you're aware of that. And I was like, I can make this work really well. I see it right away. And nope, I didn't. I wasn't able to do it.
Yeah.
But that's where my questions arise on what's more important, the numbers or the cohesiveness of the neighborhood and the representation of that council person. So is it really an issue if there's as many as 2,000 more in a district than another district, if you're keeping a very cohesive neighborhood together under one council district? And is that not allowed? And Redera, I don't even know if where you live, if you identify more with the south of Penn than you do with Center Park. So maybe I'm not making any sense to you.
No, you are making sense. That's a good question. If I identify, I think, I think I would say I would identify more with Center Park.
You're very in between. You're in
Yeah, very, very much so. But I think I would fall more in lines with Center Park. Yeah.
If I were a representative of that district, I would see it as a corridor from Center Park to Penn Street.
Yeah.
But with the south of Penn, that's where I think representation becomes an issue.
Mm-hmm.
But that is, I can't make the numbers work.
Yeah.
So thank you for that. What about District 4?
Skipped over 3.
I know.
Okay.
But if you start messing with District 2 and messing with everything else,
We're the bottom.
then I started thinking of precinct 12-5 could be thrown in with District 4, and more like 13-2 could be thrown in with District 3. 12-5 is basically Redicon.
Yeah.
And the area right around Redicon, which seems to me, from not living in that neighborhood, but certainly being aware of that neighborhood, that that's more of a college heights kind of thing than maybe a lot of the rest of District 3.
Linda and I would disagree with you.
Well, and that's what I'm looking for.
That's our neighborhood.
Yeah.
I'm with the south, I'm at 14. So I'm sort of in the corner. And if you would have gone back when I was in school, I'd say, let's annex 13-2 and 13-5, because that's where repeats. But
Right.
at this point, I don't think it matters. I don't think it matters for District 3 if you use Walnut Street as the southern cutoff, or if you went and used 10th Street, and like went into a little bit
Right.
of District 2.
Right.
I think the bulk of District 3, there's nothing that jumps out as being a special group, like you were talking earlier about the Italian neighborhood, the Polish neighborhood. I think District 3 is about as homogeneous as you can get.
Yeah.
The only thing that I would say, if you're looking at, maybe it would be nice to add 13.2 or 13.5, but now you're getting up, to the old Fulbright College area. And those things.
So that leads me to then the other domino. So District 4 people, what's more representative of your neighborhood, 13.2 or 12.5?
It's hard to say. But, well, 12.5 and 13.5 are more similar to each other than 12.5 and 13.2.
I'm sorry, say that again.
So 12.5, which is in
Right,
3,
right.
is more similar to 13.5,
Okay, yeah,
and 13.5 is the 13.2.
yeah, yes,
So-
I saw that too. Yeah, that's where I said,
But on the other hand, 13.2 and 17.1 and 17.2, that whole corner of the is very similar to, that's a neighborhood.
right. Okay.
So,
Also, good information. I didn't ask specifically District 5. So the biggest thing that sticks out to me in District 5, without numbers, is the Buttonwood Street Gateway. I think should be with District 5, which is, but that's a huge district. It goes all the way down to Penn Street. It's precinct 6-3. But it always seemed odd that Buttonwood is not part of that whole along the river district.
Well, there's a case where the railroad is that natural break in there, and that's what was used.
Yeah.
So that railroad cut in there is actually makes a pretty significant geographic line.
I'm not sure if the development that's going on there would agree with you on that, but anyway, that's
Well, I'm speculating as to what was done and why it was done.
no, and I see that. I do see that. Although when you drive that whole neighborhood, I know that is a physical barrier, but the architecture, the neighborhood, I would suspect even the demographics are all very,
Very similar. I'm not disagreeing with you at all.
well, I don't know, Buttonwood Gateway sort of changed significantly. With what's going on.
this isn't for next year. This is for next time.
Yeah, but the housing that is going is significantly different than what was there.
Yeah.
And,
But it's not significantly different.
but it'll be significantly different than everything else that's in District 12. Because in District 5, those are still going to be old row houses, while the Buttonwood Gateway is going to be basically new townhouse.
This construction.
Is new construction. So it's going to be, there's going to be that there. That applies with the rest of 6. It applies to 5 and 6. Pretty much the same way. New townhouses on row in six, the only new townhouses are at River.
Where would they put townhouses and new homes in District 5? I don't know of any place.
Tell where Valley Corporation is right now, building new homes in the bottom of the table.
Oh, okay, town 5, and I'm not the what, I guess.
Well, that's what I'm saying, is that especially, to me, it's just because it runs along the river
Yes.
and for potential, neighborhood and actually even other types of development that may be envisioned in the coming years along the river. It's, again, I'm probably overthinking this a whole lot.
I have a park across the street from my house.
Yeah.
If you Google the park, you know it's a park, but you will not know it's a park now. Since Agnes said, never touch that park. Never. So it's all woods, right there, the river across the street from my house. And actually, everybody where I live, they want to be Newell Park. They want to be part of Newell Park. They think we're left out of everything because we're in this little pool up here in that corner. That's where I live, up in this little area in that.
Okay, yeah,
I believe you there. There's not many places out there for them homes. There may be 2 properties out there that you can put a home on, but not anything else.
Yeah, actually, last heard that someone came before the planning commission to do a subdivision out there. We actually couldn't allow them to do it because their next door neighbor actually built on their land.
And I believe that.
And, so that project never went through, and I think that's the only lot that's subdivided. As I remember, and like I said, that project was put on hold because of all the legal. Because of the huge
I
legal
know
battle
exactly where the house
that came about because of that.
I know exactly the house goes.
So, yeah, and of course, I guess,
I really don't know, the cemetery, maybe the cemetery is an open space here, so I really don't know, even for changing Personic, if we're more down further.
the other, I think the other interesting thing about all of this is that, take a look at the zoning map. 3/4 of Reading is R, which basically means that it's pretty much, no matter where you live. So, because, there's only a few outliers, Albright, Riverdale, Castlewood.
Passion Camp.
Yeah.
Council is at 187.
Yeah. Why
That
missing park?
are
Yeah,
Not
what, is in Park area?
80% of the rest of the city.
Yeah.
I know.
And that's another, another problem. We have R3 all the way. We have R3 all the way from North Farm. All the way down through. My mother-in-law lives next to Southwest Middle School. That's all R3 all the way down to First Pack. So in that respect, it's all homogeneous anyway. Except for those outliers, most of the houses in the city, basically, except for Central Park, which is R3, but that's an outlier. Everybody else, those buildings are pretty much worth the same amount, which is approximately $60,000. And we're talking about 80% of the city that's basically the same.
You talk about what they're worth, and then you think about what they're actually selling for nowadays. You know, the semis up where I am, I mean, I paid 79 for my place 30 years ago. There's 4 of them on block for sale right now, starting at 160. And it's all the same house. I actually have more because I have a finished basement and second bath. They don't even have that. And they're starting at 160.
My mouth's hanging open.
Yeah. Yeah, Ryan McFadden, he's got 4 of them in a row, in a block, 160, 160, 165, and 2 units 20.
And they're going for over 2 and 3.
Yeah.
2 and 300,000.
Wow.
Really?
Yeah.
That's a lot. I think that's a lot. For where I live.
But I wish I had somewhere to go right now. Mine would be out there.
Wish my kids' stuff would be out of my basement.
Got a lot
Have
of
a lot
money
next
there.
door. Good you can.
There you go. Okay, good question, good discussion, thank you. I'm glad-
Yeah.
I'm not sure what good it's gonna do any of this, because I don't, once you start, what I was really looking to do was to keep South of Penn in one district.
Okay.
Um,
Now,
Affordable
when you
goal.
say South of Penn, how far are you going? Are you going from 2nd all the way up to 12?
Right beyond 12.
Perkiomen all the way out?
No, the dividing line was the railroad.
Oh, okay.
But it's hard to tell with the difference. I mean, I'm looking at a full district map, and, you know, there's kind of a natural dividing line with the railroad.
There's like a 7.
Yes,
Yes, mhm,
then basically from the river to 7,
and,
it would be those two precincts, 5-1 and 4-1. Just adding those to District 1.
and then, like, and he said, oh, look, these numbers look similar. That's exactly what I said. And then it falls apart.
Right.
And that's a shame, because I'm trying to figure out a way to serve. I speak from experience when I applied for John Slifko's seat and realized that District 6 was so diverse in so many ways. It was a business. It was and it was it didn't make a lot of sense. I, as a representative, thought I would not be able to represent South Smith. I didn't know the business. And I own a business on the 100 block of North Fifth Street, and I live in Center Park. And I knew that area very well. Now, does that mean I am the only person that could, you know, that represents District 6? No, I mean, there's, you know, it goes both ways. So I'm just trying to keep my experience in the same place. And it's very hard to do.
You and her are brother sister.
Yes.
Okay.
Don't hold that against me, please.
No. I used to do a lot of business active business
Yeah.
back in the film days.
Actually, I've sold it, so
Okay.
it's now going back to a film place.
Oh, okay.
What comes around, if you wait long enough, it comes back.
Okay, interesting.
Yeah. That's where we are going.
Oh. Okay, do we have any more to add to this particular discussion? Anybody? I mean, Lori, great thoughts, great questions. It's the discussions like this that are gonna help do what we do. Maybe, maybe not. But at least we'll put thought into it. At this point, why am I missing a page here? Oh, there it is. That was pretty much our mapping proposals to date discussion. Given that we have 2 more meetings before we need to send someone to council, or something to council, 2 more scheduled meetings. What I would recommend at this point is between now and January, try to do, if we haven't yet, and like I said, I haven't been able to really try anything yet. Take one more stab at it. And I think if we as a group decide, or you as a group decide that status quo is probably going to be the way to go, then we can put that together in a proposal and, with Linda's guidance on how we do that formally, we can submit that to council. Yeah, go ahead.
So say somehow I look at this and come up with something that I think will be quite different, but that may work for two numbers.
I did already.
We did.
Yes.
Would you or your office or somebody be able to say, if I gave you a list of the districts, the precincts, can you come up with a color-coded map that looks very different?
I would have to have somebody else on staff do it. I can't do the math, which is why we had to wait for so long. Please, I had to have somebody in another department do it.
I can do it. I
but-
just need to.
I mean, if you come up with something, yeah, I will help you out as much as I can. I mean, that's my job.
Yeah, we'll have the tracing paper.
Well, that's fine.
Yeah. That's how it
You,
works.
you don't even need to do any of that. Just send me, if you want to take this spreadsheet that I sent out and redo the numbers or send it to me in any kind of a spreadsheet, that's fine. And we can do what we can.
Spreadsheets as well as I did maps.
Okay.
I'm terrible at spreadsheets.
My degree is actually cartography, so I'm a map guy myself. Yeah, anybody, if you want to send something to me to have me get it in such a way that we can get it out to the entire group, whether it's numbers, it's handwriting, it's coded maps, please get it to me. And I will get it out to the group. All I would ask is don't send it to me Wednesday morning for the day of our meeting. Thanks, Lee.
Just sitting here with the plenty of numbers that I've been doing here, I could probably come up with a way of getting those two districts out of 10. The swap that you started with, and then the dominoes fell the wrong way. I could probably make a lot of dominoes fall and come up with something where this is just as bad.
Well, that's just it.
But I don't think that's bad.
It would be a different bar chart, but it would still be just as far from balance as this is, which is not very far out.
It's actually not very far.
Yeah.
Because when I started playing with numbers, it started getting further.
Exactly.
So if we can get a little bit more neighborhood cohesiveness and come up with something that's close to it, I would like to see that. Personally.
And under the charter, is that something that would be viable?
Oh, yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Lori, can you explain to me what you mean by neighborhood cohesiveness? Because I think what I heard you say earlier is that your ideal would be that each district is identifiable as one neighborhood or one character or characteristic that separates it from other districts. Is that correct?
Yes, but still the major landmarks that divide our state naturally would still also be in place. To me, that's Spencer railroads.
River.
That type of thing. River, yeah. And, yeah, I don't know.
The center part, in my opinion, has a defined geographic area. And maybe the center lines of the streets that define that are what differentiate between my living in Central Park or next to Central Park. I wasn't quite sure with there where you were going with what, where she felt her identity was.
The only way I can explain that to you is my dog seems to naturally stay within some very neighborhood lines that aren't well-defined in my dog's mind, right? So there are areas in that District 6, to me, that go beyond just the historic district of Center Park. Very much so, beyond Center Park. And
So the character, the scale, the quality, the architecture, feeling of it, it's not at Central Park, but it's sort of an extension of what that feels like.
yes, yes, yes. And I don't think, and I really, I'm not sure how a representative can represent Southwood Penn and Robinson Street. Right. You know what I mean by that? There are literally that Center Park, the park itself is within walking distance. And is the neighborhood. I know it has to include more than that to play this numbers game, but I really feel that either goes north or, whatever. Plus, by splitting up that Twin Street thing, you then get 2 representatives in council that would represent a core business corridor into the city that goes beyond just representing numbers of populations of people. And I think that's important for good representation of the business district that doesn't necessarily have a population number. To me, that's how I would interpret it now. Like we said, is it better to have one council person represent all of the business district? Or is it better to have 2 or 3?
Okay.
That's something I would like this group
Yeah.
to think about and consider. My personal feeling is I think it would be helpful to have a number of people come together on council, since council is a part-time kind of thing anyway. If you have more council districts being interactive in that 10th Street corridor, then you've got more neighborhoods that come along with that and buy into it.
Future expansion to 8 council.
Say that again, I'm sorry.
Business, throughout the idea of maybe expand council.
8 instead of 6.
8 districts
So
instead of 6.
Yeah,
That was something that was brought out.
Yeah, I think that would be a change in form of government.
Well, it's hard enough.
The one thing that was, that I believe, we had asked a question about, is there any plans to change any of the precincts and whatnot, voting? And I thought they basically said not now, but could be, right? But some of the precincts were divided up better, it would make life easier for this committee, because they wouldn't be as far, because we're just dealing with some large numbers of people to try to move around in different grouping. Like you look in there, and some of those are humongous, and like you're saying, you could be looking at Douglas Street is the same as Cherry Street. That's the big difference there. And it seems like the big things are in the big areas, like in 1 and 5, where they have a lot of area and not quite as many people.
the unfortunate reality though is that the process to split precincts, combine precincts, which Linda did include in our agenda for this evening. She included the commissioner's response. It's going to take much longer than the time that we have to act as a commission. That'll help us for 2030. That's the thing.
And I think, given what's on the table for the future, I think what you just said makes a lot of sense. City is wrestling now with a downtown plus plan that has tremendous potential impact 10 years from now. next group sits here. And Mike and Wayne and Linda are still here trying to take the next group.
No, August 6th, 2030, I'm done.
In the county.
And to Lori's point, we may have an opportunity at that point in time where there will be such a population shift and increase that businesses hopefully will have increased and parasitically people live around them. That there could be the need for two representatives to represent a larger central business district.
Well, and like any city. That office spaces. Looks like it's work.
Yeah.
It's going to start to convert it into housing.
Well, and the converse to that is New York City has lost 25 to 30% of revenue on office buildings because they're not coming back. And so now there's a whole way of thinking about billions of square feet that could be converted to the housing that administrations have been street decades.
So look at District 6. It's
And the fact that the population has increased since 2010. And when I look at the numbers and I look at District 4, which lost the most, its population is the least, and District 6 is the most, it's only a gain of 1.5%. There's hardly any change numerically across the 6 districts.
But, we all know, what may be happening in that North Fifth Street corridor just in the next few years. And I can change that population too.
Yeah.
So if there's a district that maybe went, I don't know. But if one's gonna be a little shy, maybe it is district 6, because in short term, it can be effective.
And I would certainly hope, in my opinion, looking at architectural planning perspective, next 10 years, we de-densify many of those neighborhoods that have 7 apartments in one building. And those buildings that could be vacant, they become better housing. Because these are shotgun houses we have, 6 foot, et cetera, we can almost touch the size of the house because they're measuring 11.6 wall. Go away, the quality of space people are living in improves. So the balance may, people get better housing, number of housing units may go up, but they'll be better located in better buildings. So
And although this commission, or this committee, whatever, commission, it's probably not part of our parameters probably shouldn't be what's gonna happen in 10 years.
What?
So,
No, you're right. We have to deal with what's here now.
Remember, when we're talking about housing units, it's not just the structures that you're talking about or the kind of houses that will live in. We're including every single apartment unit that Alan Schuman is putting in or has put in. To old outlets, to old hotels, to what's coming in the medical arts building. Every one of those apartments is a housing unit.
And each
Mhm.
Yep, that's right. And he's talking about apartment units there as well.
But that's not included with the 20
No, it's not. But what he's talking about is 10 years from now.
Well, it can only,
That's what, yeah,
Yeah.
exactly.
And we just had somebody come forward about the Santan Art. That's 6. And they want to put a lot of. That's.
In the Santander building. I thought they were using most of that building.
now, according to what we were told, the only occupiable viable space in the Santander building is the Grand Trek. The rest of the building is vacant.
Because they were running their entire mortgage operation out of the second floor. Oh, I didn't know that.
What we were told, they left packed up and left real quick.
Okay, what's happening down at Fifth and Tech in their building?
I believe isn't Al Schuman operating something out of there with like little incubators of restaurants and a gym and then apartments.
At Fifthington?
Where the old bank used to be.
Yeah, that's Sixth and Washington that he's doing that.
Yeah,
That's Sixth in Washington, he's doing that. I'm talking about the new building that Santander built not too long ago at Fifth and Penn.
Yes. That leads on.
in the southwest corner.
You know, and there you talk about having the residents downtown because of the lack of office or the lack of a need for office space. A lot of those office workers drove your downtown businesses with a lunchtime rush. Without that, you now have that secondary effect. So we're getting off topic here. We're planning.
We are, but it is interesting with all the possibilities of what we have.
Yeah.
Again, I put out there that it's probably better for everyone, in my opinion, everyone meaning the city and the administration. You have a number of different representatives for that main business corridor. So that one representative of the city is not necessarily the only. You know what I mean?
Yeah, exactly.
So I don't wanna, it just seems like maybe, not that council isn't involved in all those decisions anyway, they are, but there is a council person's district can either help or oppose something that may happen that affects what's behind that main business. So anyway, just a thought.
These are things that when I try to come up with some proposals myself over the next month, these are things that I'll keep in mind and I'll try to work out. Does anybody have anything else for this evening's discussion? Hearing none, our next meeting is Wednesday, January 12th at 6:30. Hopefully we can come to some decisions that evening. Even if that decision is continue with the status quo, we'll go over what we can come up with, and if we have to, we will meet in February. Remember, we have to be done by March 1st. So this is one nice thing about this charter requirement is we cannot mess around.
Well, and thanks to you and Linda and to Wayne for the graphic support that Wayne provided. It all came together pretty well to make it easily to understand. My first thing, stretch my head sort of balance. Now I have a better understanding.
Yeah, thank you. So,
No problem at all. It was one of those things where I started working on it, was like, okay, this could be helpful. Let me throw this out.
It was very great.
Linda, thank you for your support. I appreciate it.
My pleasure.
Lori, thank you for all the great discussion. Everybody
Yes.
have a happy kid holiday.
Yeah, you too.
Thank you.
Thank
Thank
you,
you all.
everyone. Thank you. Look forward to seeing you guys in person next meeting.
Yes.
Have a great wedding.
Enjoy your
Thank
wedding.
you.
Congratulations.
Thank you. You guys have a good holiday. Happy holidays to everyone.
Thank
Thank
you.
you.